Hey everyone, I'm Ashes,
And I'm Will.
and
And
this
this
is
is
Ashes
Ashes
and
and
Will
Will
Do
Do Disney.
Disney.
Each week, one of us will tell the other the history, facts, and stories behind the rides and attractions of Disney that have made special memories for generations.
Keep in mind that Ashes and Will Do Disney is not affiliated with or employed by the Walt Disney Company, and our views and opinions do not reflect theirs.
Now it's time to sit back, relax, and put on your ears because it's time for Ashes and Will Do Disney. Hello, everybody. It is just Will again on our second edition of a mini episode. It's a holiday weekend, which by the time this airs, it will be after the holiday, but since it is a long weekend, we did want to make sure that we were spending some time with our family and not just recording the entire time and editing the entire time. So this week we are bringing you another edition of the mini episode. Currently, Ashley is downstairs having a girls' night where she is doing some Disney crafts with her friends. And I am currently holed up in our walk-in closet with the door shut to block out some of the noise. And she's doing her Disney thing, I'm doing my Disney thing. But anyways, here we go. As you all know, Halloween doesn't really end in our house. And back in October, we did a 2-part series on the Haunted Mansion. But there's so much to do with the Haunted Mansion that even with 2 episodes, I couldn't possibly fit in all the details. I could have done so many more parts, but also wanted to save some things for Halloween for 2022, which I'll probably be doing more Haunted Mansion episodes at that point as well. But for now, I wanted to go ahead and continue on with something that we touched on briefly in our Haunted Mansion series, but wanted to give a little bit more details. What I'm going to talk about for this episode wasn't enough for an entire episode, so I felt like it made for perfect content for the next mini episode. And without further ado, here we go. One of the most famous ghosts of the Haunted Mansion isn't even necessarily famous because of who he is, but more because of where he was. Or should I say because of where he wasn't. I'm speaking of none other than the Hatbox Ghost. Currently residing in the attic of the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, alongside the Black Widow bride Constance Hatchaway, the Hatbox Ghost for a long time was the lost ghost of the 999 Happy Haunts. He was present in the mansion for a brief time when the attraction opened in 1969, but then he disappeared and didn't come back until May of 2015. While we touched on him briefly in our 2-part series about the Haunted Mansion at Halloween time, let's learn more about one of the most iconic ghosts that hasn't been around very long. The Hatbox Ghost is described as a cloaked figure with an evil, grinning face in the story and song from the Haunted Mansion. He holds an old walking stick in his right hand and grips his infamous hatbox in his left. When guests first see this ghastly grinner, his head disappears from his shoulders, reappearing in his hatbox, leaving his top hat hovering above where his head should be. After a moment, his head fades out of the box and back onto its body. The Hatbox Ghost has a similar facial design to the hitchhiking ghost Ezra, that is, his features are skeletal in nature. There are several theories as to the background of our fiendish friend and his hatbox. One of the more popular is that he was the lover of Constance Hatchaway and was either killed by her or a jealous suitor. Many now assume that he is one of the decapitated husbands of the Black Widow bride and she hid his head in the hatbox. Another thought is the Hatbox Ghost was not one of her lovers or former husbands, but rather her accomplice, helping her hide murdered husbands' heads in his hatboxes. The original Hatbox Ghost, that was part of the Haunted Mansion in 1969, was in a corner in the attic, opposite of the bride. It was implied that he was a suitor to her and his head faded out of view and returned with each pump of the bride's heart. Now, the ghost stands at the balcony, 7 Hatboxes by his side, and guests see him as they are hurled out of the window to the graveyard scene. He chuckles as his head disappears off of his shoulders and into his hatbox. Corey Burton, who has done many voices for Disney and has also done Cad Bane for the Star Wars series in more recent history, provides the chuckle, uncredited. While the Hatbox Ghost does not appear in the attic at Walt Disney World, his presence is still felt if you're paying attention. You can see his face in many of the family portraits in the corridor of doors. The corridor of doors being where lots of the door handles are jiggling and even has the famous breathing door. Several pictures show him wearing hats different from his signature top hat. In one, he's wearing a bowler hat. In another, he is wearing a crown. In 2019, Disney PhotoPass added the Hatbox Ghost looming over guest doom buggies in the portrait hall. As we had discussed in the previous episodes, the lighting effects for the Hatbox Ghost just did not work the way they were supposed to in 1969. One of the biggest problems being that guests were too close to the haunt for the effect to work as intended to actually make it look like his head was vanishing. Basically, they were just using lighting to make it look like his head was disappearing and reappearing, but guests were so close that when the lights went off on his face, you could still see it. There was a rumor that they took the parts of the original Hatbox Ghost and repurposed him for Sam Eagle for the America Sings attraction, which is now defunct. This rumor was dispelled when a manual for the Haunted Mansion had been auctioned and showed that the Hatbox Ghost animatronic was just too simple to have the moving parts to be Sam Eagle. The Hatbox Ghost has been prominently featured in promotional materials for the Haunted Mansion. As such, his disappearance was not unnoticed and he did not slip into the land of the forgotten. He remained a famous mystery for about 45 years, and speculations and rumors about this missing happy haunt never rested in peace. Even when he wasn't part of the ride, the Hatbox Ghost maintained a presence in Disney merchandise and media. The first time a Haunted Mansion reboot movie was announced in 2010, director Guillermo del Toro stated that the Hatbox Ghost would be a main attraction of the film. Obviously, that film never came to fruition, but it has been announced we are still getting a reboot, so we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get a Hatbox Ghost in this one. At the D23 Expo in 2013, a large animatronic was present and dressed as the Hatbox Ghost. In January of 2015, when the Haunted Holiday Overlay, which the Haunted Holiday being the annual Nightmare Before Christmas Haunted Mansion mashup, was coming down, a wall with a holographic image of a bat was set up on the balcony of the Haunted Mansion. This led many to believe that Disney was going to be adding something to the ride that wasn't ready for the public's eye. But most people had deduced that Disney was finally bringing the Hatbox Ghost back to his home. Disney continued to tease his triumphant return by featuring him on a lot of the merchandise for the 45th anniversary of the Haunted Mansion. Disney finally let the black cat out of the bag in April of 2015 and let the public know that the Hatbox Ghost would be returning to the Haunted Mansion. After closing the ride for a week, the Hatbox Ghost re-debuted at the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland on May 9th, 2015. Now, as we mentioned, the Hatbox Ghost had a legacy outside of the Haunted Mansion, considering he wasn't in the Haunted Mansion for a long time, and also has had multiple appearances outside of the attraction. He has had a cameo in the cartoon series The House of Mouse in the episode known as House Ghosts, in which Pete unleashes the hitchhiking ghosts and other happy haunts on the House of Mouse. He is portrayed by Fozzie in the Muppets Haunted Mansion, using the name Gauzy the Hatbox Bear. He used his head disappearing and reappearing as part of a comedy routine. He has an appearance in the book Tales from the Haunted Mansion Volume 2 in the story Uncle Rory's Late Show, where Rory is an undead character who exacts revenge on a lot of people, and the Hatbox Ghost puts one of Rory's victims' head in a hat box for him. And he's also appeared in multiple Disney comics. Here's some additional trivia for the Hatbox Ghost. We discussed how he can be seen in family portraits in various stages at Walt Disney World, but there are also 5 hat boxes stacked in the attic scene that are almost identical to the ones at Disneyland. There is speculation that his design is based off of Lon Chaney's character, the man in the beaver hat, from the 1927 horror film London After Midnight. In some of the merchandise from Disney, he is referred to as the maddest hatter of them all, which is a reference to Alice in Wonderland, suggesting he is even more mad than the Mad Hatter himself. Despite being removed due to the lack of magic in the special effect, a popular belief is that the Hatbox Ghost was removed from the Haunted Mansion because he was too scary. This even started a rumor that went around that he scared a guest so badly that it led to the guest having a heart attack. This is not true. He was simply removed because the lighting effect didn't work, and because they couldn't get the effect down, they didn't keep him in the Haunted Mansion. Because at the time, in 1969, rather than being able to use some of the projection and lighting effects that they use today, that simply wasn't an option. It's unknown where the original animatronic is for the Hatbox Ghost. As mentioned, one theory claimed that he was repurposed to be Sam Eagle in America Sings, which has since been repurposed into Brer Fox in Splash Mountain, which is also going to go away because eventually they are going to turn Splash Mountain into a Princess and the Frog theme. But as we said, that theory was already debunked with the original blueprints for the Hatbox Ghost. The Hatbox Ghost reached an iconic status in the Disney universe without ever really having a presence at the Haunted Mansion. With only a brief appearance in the attic in 1969, he created an impression that made him a legend in his own right. From being prominently featured in merchandise and promotional materials without being featured in the ride, to creating legends of literally scaring people to death, the Hatbox Ghost has a legacy that lasted 45 years before being brought back to his rightful spot in the mansion. One can only imagine what this restless spirit can do now that he is on stage for the world to see. That's it for this week's episode of Ashes and Will Do Disney.
Don't forget, we need your mouse tales. If you have a funny, weird, exciting, or just a favorite Disney memory, send it to ashesandwilldodisney@gmail.com so we can read them on the show.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Ashes and Will Do Disney. This is a public group to follow. We're also on YouTube at Ashes and Will Do Disney.
Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and have a magical day!